Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to the ideas that can really make a difference. And today, we're tackling something genuinely fascinating, maybe even a bit unsettling. It's this idea that sometimes leaning into disruption, into chaos, can actually be a strategy. Yeah, we're looking at excerpts from a piece called Controlled Chaos, Strategic Disruption. And our mission really is to figure out how creating what looks like disorder can work for you. It sounds wrong, doesn't it? But the core idea we're going to unpack is sometimes you need to be the one shaking things up, not just reacting when things get shaken. And then critically, you guide that energy. It makes you think. Big breakthroughs rarely come from just keeping everything ticking along smoothly. Okay, so let's dig into that central phrase from the source, stir things up. What does that really mean in practice? Because it's not just, random vandalism or letting things fall apart. The source is clear, it's deliberate, it's calculated. Think less about shaking a salad dressing and more like, okay, imagine a big successful company. Stirring things up for them might be launching a risky new product that competes with their own bestseller. Or completely changing how their best team works. It's about proactively disrupting your own system to force new thinking, rather than waiting for the market to force it on you.
Right. And what's so interesting there is how much it pushes against, our basic human wiring, isn't it? We crave order, predictability.
Yeah, definitely. Routines, systems, they make us feel safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But stirring things up, like the source says, is about fighting inertia. It's about intentionally breaking those comfortable patterns, those ways of doing things that maybe aren't serving you anymore, even if they feel familiar. The point isn't the chaos itself, but the energy it creates, the movement, where maybe things had just gotten stuck. It's about sparking change through a bit of productive discomfort.
That really resonates, and it makes you think, doesn't it? For you listening, maybe in your job or a project you've been on forever, have you ever felt that sense that things are just stuck? Just how we do things here. This idea offers a pretty active, maybe even slightly rebellious path forward. But what's usually the biggest hurdle? Getting started. How do people get over that fear of messing with what seems to be working?
Well, that initial resistance is huge. It's mostly because the risk feels immediate and obvious, right? Disrupting things feels dangerous. The potential payoff, on the other hand, seems uncertain. Further away, people worry about losing control.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the source kind of suggests a mindset shift is needed. You need to start seeing the risk of staying put, the risk of stagnation, as potentially bigger than the risk of a controlled shakeup.
Okay.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, like why would this chaos actually be good for you? The core insight seems to be that smooth running order, while comforting, can actually hide a lot. Inefficiencies, maybe underlying problems, or just missed opportunities.
Different things.
Yeah. When everything's humming along, we often stop questioning the basic assumptions we're working under. They become invisible. So creating movement, even if it feels a bit messy at first, acts like a diagnostic. It throws things into relief. It can surface critical information, show you what your team or system is really capable of, or maybe uncover talent that was just stuck in a rigid role. It forces you to look again, to question, to find paths you just couldn't see before.
Okay, now that's where it gets really interesting for me. So it's not about courting disaster.
No, not at all.
It's more like recognizing that sometimes you need that controlled disruption before you can get to real positive change. Like maybe a tech team decides to try a totally flat structure for a few months. No managers.
Right, could feel chaotic.
Totally. Who makes decisions? Things might seem blurry. But the point isn't just the new org chart. It's about what emerges, right? Who steps up naturally? How do the teams figure things out? Where are the real roadblocks? That initial messiness lets deeper truths come out, maybe leading to a more adaptable team in the long run.
That's a perfect example. It really highlights that the value isn't in the disruption itself. It's in what the disruption reveals and what it makes possible. But this brings up a really important point, and it leads us straight to the second, absolutely essential part of that quote from the source. Then direct it.
Ah, right. Follow through.
Yes, because without that, stirring things up just creates, a mess. Unproductive noise. You don't get a breakthrough. You just get disorder.
So just chaos, not controlled chaos.
Exactly. Directing it means you had a strategy in mind. You have a goal, even if it needs to adapt. And you have the means to actually channel all that new energy, those new insights, towards something specific. You're not just watching the pieces fly. You're actively trying to arrange them into a better pattern based on what you're learning as it happens.
Okay, so what does directing actually look like? Boots on the ground, because that feels like the tricky part. How do you guide things without accidentally squashing the creativity or the unexpected solutions the chaos was supposed to generate? Isn't there a danger of just imposing the old order in a new way?
That is the art of it, absolutely. And it demands a different kind of leadership, or maybe just a different approach.
Mm.
It's less about command and control and more about being a really sharp observer,
Yeah.
an agile facilitator.
Okay.
You're scanning for those new patterns that are starting to form, those unexpected team-ups, the fresh ideas bubbling up. It means asking good questions, making it safe for people to voice half-formed ideas, setting up ways to get feedback quickly.
So less top-down instruction.
Much less. The risk of over-controlling is definitely real. That's why the direction isn't about laying out every single step in advance. It's more like gardening. You prepare the ground, maybe introduce some new seeds, let things sprout, and then you gently guide and prune to encourage healthy growth. You're not dictating the exact shape of every plant.
I like that analogy. Garden tending, not building with Legos.
Kinda, yeah. We need to keep checking in. Is this movement generally heading towards our strategic aim?
Yeah.
But you adapt based on what's actually growing, not based on a rigid plan you made beforehand.
Right. So that control in controlled chaos isn't about clamping down. It's about smart, responsive channeling. But how do you know if your directing is working? What are you looking at? Are there practical ways, maybe metrics, to tell if you're guiding effectively versus just making things worse?
That's a great question. And the source implies you need constant adjustment and some clear signals. So let's say you disrupted a sales process, right? You wouldn't just look at the final sales figures immediately, because they might dip at first.
Oh.
You'd also track things like, are conversion rates changing with the new approaches? What's customer feedback like? Are problems getting solved faster or slower?
Leading indicators.
It's exactly. Leading indicators. Or if you changed up the organization, maybe you track how often different departments are collaborating now. Employee engagement surveys. Are people suggesting new ideas more often, even if they're rough? The trick is setting up indicators that show if the new patterns emerging are actually constructive ones. It means you have to tolerate some initial messiness, maybe some inefficiency. But you also need to know when to step in if things are going genuinely off the rails.
Thresholds for intervention.
Precisely. You kick off enough disruption to shake things loose, create possibilities, then you skillfully steer those possibilities using what you're learning, making quick adjustments. Continuous learning is key.
Okay, so putting it all together, what does this really mean for you listening right now? This controlled chaos idea really seems to be about a two-stage approach. Pretty powerful when you think about it. First, you intentionally create some movement. You shake up the status quo somehow, challenge assumptions, try something unexpected. But then, and this is just as important, you actively guide that energy. You channel the results towards something useful, something better. You're not just riding the wave, you're trying to steer it.
Yeah. And I think the crucial takeaway here is that it reframes challenges. It's not about trying to avoid rough seas all the time. It's about understanding that the very forces that feel chaotic, like change, uncertainty, discomfort, can actually be harnessed. They can become tools for progress, for innovation.
Right.
It shifts your role from just being, someone living within the environment to someone actively shaping it, whether that's your project, your team, your company, or even just your own way of thinking. It's about becoming maybe a sculptor of possibilities rather than just accepting things as they are.
A sculptor of possibilities. I like that. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive today on controlled chaos, strategic disruption. It's a really potent idea, isn't it? That intentional movement, followed by careful direction, can be so useful. Makes you wonder how much potential gets locked up just because we stick to how it's always been done. Thanks so much for joining us for this exploration. Now, as you head back into your week, here's something to chew on. Where in your world, your work, your life, could you maybe strategically stir things up a little bit, maybe challenge one assumption or tweak one routine process? And then think about this. What would you watch for? What signals or metrics would tell you if you're starting to direct that new movement towards something genuinely better? Give that some thought. Explore it. And we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.